Hello everyone, and welcome back to Snowbound Screams. Tonight, we travel into the forgotten backroads of America, places where light fades, and what remains are stories that refuse to die. Across these hills, rivers, and empty towns are accounts drawn from witness reports, police files, and archived broadcasts. Each one verified, recorded, and retold in their own words. The Interstate 10 corridor stretches across the vast expanse of Texas, covering nearly 900 miles from the Louisiana border to the El Paso city limits. For decades, highway patrol officers have documented encounters along this stretch that defy conventional explanation. These are not tales told around campfires, but official reports filed in state databases, dashcam footage stored in evidence lockers, and radio transmissions logged in dispatch archives. What follows are 8 verified incidents that occurred along this particular stretch of highway between 2003 and 2018. Each involves Texas Department of Public Safety personnel encountering phenomena that would forever alter their understanding of reality. The names have been changed to protect privacy, but the documents remain accessible through public information requests. Now, let us begin with our first story. It was late October of 2012. Sergeant Mark Richardson had been with the Texas Highway Patrol for 14 years, and his assignment to the Fort Stockton district had become routine. The stretch of I-10 between Fort Stockton and the Pecos River crossing was particularly desolate, especially during the midnight shift. The desert landscape offered little variation, saguaro cacti standing like silent sentinels against the horizon, mesquite bushes dotting the landscape, and the endless ribbon of asphalt cutting through it all. The night had begun like any other. Richardson had clocked in at 10:45 p.m., received his patrol vehicle, a 2011 Crown Victoria with 87,000 miles on the odometer, and gone through his standard equipment check. Everything was in order. Radio functioning properly, emergency lights operational, dashboard camera recording, and the half-full thermos of coffee his wife had prepared for him sitting in the passenger seat. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio as she called out his unit number for the final roll call of the night. Unit 734, Richardson, checking in at the I-10 eastbound mile marker 268. All systems nominal. Beginning patrol east toward the Pecos River crossing. The desert air was cool, with temperatures hovering around 52 degrees, according to the dashboard display. Richardson drove at a steady 65 miles per hour, his headlights cutting through the darkness. The only other vehicles he encountered were the occasional 18-wheeler, their drivers likely trying to make time before the mandatory rest period required by federal regulations. Around 1:17 a.m., as he approached mile marker 284, his headlights caught a figure standing beside the road, a man in what appeared to be denim jeans and a flannel shirt, thumb extended in the universal gesture of a hitchhiker. Richardson slowed his vehicle, activating his spotlight to get a better look. The man appeared to be in his late 20s or early 30s, with dark hair and a weathered face that suggested he'd spent considerable time outdoors. He carried no backpack or luggage, just stood there with his hands in his pockets, looking directly at the approaching patrol car. As Richardson pulled over about 50 feet ahead of the man, he radioed dispatch to notify them of the situation. Dispatch, Unit 734. I have a pedestrian at mile marker 284, eastbound side. We'll be conducting a welfare check. Over. The response came quickly. Copy that, Unit 734. Advise when complete. Richardson stepped out of his vehicle, the desert silence immediately enveloping him. The only sounds were the distant hum of his patrol car's engine and the faint whisper of wind across the desert floor. He approached the man cautiously, his hand resting near his sidearm as per protocol. Evening, officer, the man said as Richardson drew near. His voice was calm, with a slight Texas drawl that Richardson couldn't quite place. Sir, This is a restricted highway. No. Pedestrian traffic allowed, Richardson replied, maintaining a professional distance. What brings you out here? The man shrugged. My truck broke down a few miles back. Thought I'd catch a ride to the next town. Richardson noted the absence of any vehicle breakdown indicators, no lights visible in either direction, no recent tire tracks leaving the roadway, no signs of a disabled vehicle anywhere in sight. He also found it odd that the man showed no signs of exposure despite the cool desert night. His clothes weren't dusty or windblown, and his shoes appeared clean, as though he hadn't been walking on the dusty shoulder of the highway. Where's your vehicle? Richardson asked. The man pointed west. About 3 miles that way. Engine just quit on me. I'll need to see some identification, Richardson said, taking out his citation book. The man complied, pulling a wallet from his back pocket. He handed Richardson a Texas driver's license. The name read John Miller, from Odessa, with an expiration date of May 2014. Richardson made note of the license number and date of birth before handing it back. I can give you a ride to the next service area, Richardson offered. But I'll need to file a report about your vehicle. We can't just leave it on the shoulder. The man nodded. Appreciate that, officer. Richardson escorted the man to the passenger side of his patrol car, opening the rear door as per standard procedure when transporting civilians. The man complied without comment, sliding into the back seat. Richardson re-entered the driver's side, adjusting his mirror to keep the passenger in view as he drove. Dispatch, Unit 734. I'll be transporting one civilian to the Sonora service area. His vehicle is disabled approximately 3 miles west of mile marker 284. Requesting tow truck assistance to that location. Over. Copy that, Unit 734. Tow truck dispatched. The drive was uneventful for the first few minutes. Richardson made small talk, asking about the man's travels and occupation. John Miller claimed to be a construction worker traveling to San Antonio for a job. His answers were consistent but somewhat vague, lacking specific details that Richardson would have expected from someone in that profession. As they passed mile marker 292, Richardson glanced in his rearview mirror to check on his passenger. The back seat was empty. Richardson immediately pulled over to the shoulder, his heart rate accelerating as he conducted a visual search of the vehicle's interior. The back door remained closed and locked from the inside. There was no way someone could have exited the vehicle while it was moving at 65 miles per hour without Richardson noticing. He radioed dispatch with a trembling voice. Dispatch, Unit 734. I have a situation. My passenger has disappeared from the vehicle. Copy that, Unit 734. Please repeat. Richardson took a deep breath. The civilian I was transporting has vanished from the back seat of my patrol car. I'm pulling over now to investigate. Unit 734, are you certain? Positive, dispatch. The back seat is empty. The door is still locked. There's no possible way he could have exited without my knowledge. Richardson stepped out of the vehicle and walked around to the back door, opening it with his key. The seat was indeed empty, with no sign that anyone had been there at all. The seatbelt was retracted, and there were no footprints or disturbances on the floor mat. He ran his hand across the seat. It was cool to the touch, with no residual body heat. The dispatcher's voice came over the radio. Unit 734, we're checking the license number you provided earlier. The system shows no record of a John Miller with that identification number. Could you verify the digits you gave us? Richardson returned to his driver's seat, consulting his citation book where he had written down the information. He read the numbers again, his confusion growing. Dispatch, the numbers I wrote down match what I saw on the license. Texas license number 1134-78, expiration May 2014. There was a pause before the dispatcher responded. Unit 734, that license number format doesn't match Texas DMV records. And the expiration date you provided is for a license that would have expired 8 years ago. Richardson felt a cold realization creep over him. He had been certain of what he had seen: the license, the man, the entire encounter. Yet the evidence was suggesting something impossible. Dispatch, I'm returning to the location where I picked up the passenger to conduct a search. Copy that, Unit 734. Be advised, we have no tow trucks available at this time. The service you requested earlier has been canceled. Richardson drove back to mile marker 284, his spotlight sweeping the roadside as he searched for any sign of his mysterious passenger. There were no footprints in the dust, no indication that anyone had been standing there at all. He parked his car and conducted a thorough search of the area, finding nothing but desert scrub and the occasional piece of tire debris from passing vehicles. The Texas Department of Public Safety incident report, filed the next morning, Case 2012-10-28-734, documents the event in Richardson's own words. At approximately 01:17 hours, I encountered a white male, approximately 30 years of age, standing on the eastbound shoulder of I-10 at mile marker 284. The subject requested transportation to the next service area. While en route, the subject vanished from the rear of my patrol vehicle between mile markers 291 and 292. Subsequent investigation revealed no evidence of the subject's presence in the vehicle or at the location where he was initially encountered. The dashcam footage from Richardson's vehicle shows no visual evidence of the passenger, despite Richardson's clear interaction with someone in the back seat during the drive. Audio recordings capture Richardson's conversation with an unidentified male voice, though the voice itself is barely discernible beneath the ambient noise of the patrol car. No trace of John Miller was ever found. The license number Richardson recorded does not exist in any Texas database. Several other officers have reported similar encounters with vanishing hitchhikers along this stretch of I-10 over the years, though none have documented their experiences as thoroughly as Richardson did that October night. It was early March of 2007. Trooper Jessica Martinez had transferred to the Van Horn district just 3 months prior, seeking a quieter posting after 7 years in the congested corridors of Houston. The vast openness of West Texas appealed to her: the endless horizons, the minimal traffic, and the predictable rhythm of highway patrol work. Her husband had remained in Houston to finish his contract with the fire department, promising to join her once his service was complete. The evening of March 12th began with typical West Texas weather-clear skies, temperatures in the low 60s, and a gentle breeze from the west. Martinez had reported for duty at 3 p.m., taking over the eastbound patrol of I-10 from the Culberson County line to the Reeves County line, a stretch of approximately 45 miles. Her vehicle, a 2006 Crown Victoria, with just under 40,000 miles, was in excellent condition. Recently serviced and equipped with the latest radar and communication technology. By 9:47 p.m., Martinez had completed her routine patrol and was parked in the median turnaround at mile marker 142, completing her activity log when the first call came in. Dispatch to all units in the vicinity of mile marker 150. Multiple reports of a reckless commercial vehicle eastbound. Description: older model 18-wheeler, dark blue or black, no visible company markings or license plates. Proceed with caution. Martinez acknowledged the call, pulling onto the eastbound lanes and accelerating to catch up with traffic. The reports continued to come in from civilian drivers, some claiming the truck was traveling at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour, others describing erratic lane changes without signaling. What made these reports unusual was their consistency. Typically, descriptions of reckless drivers vary significantly between witnesses, but in this case, Everyone described the same vehicle with remarkable similarity. As Martinez approached mile marker 148, she spotted the truck ahead. It was exactly as described, a dark blue 18-wheeler, seemingly from the 1970s or early 1980s based on its design, with no company logo or duty number visible on its cab or trailer. The vehicle was maintaining a steady speed of approximately 80 miles per hour, swerving occasionally between lanes without signaling. Martinez activated her emergency lights and siren, closing the distance between her patrol car and the truck. The driver showed no immediate response, continuing at the same speed and pattern of movement. Martinez radioed dispatch to update her status. Dispatch, Unit 421. I have the commercial vehicle in sight at mile marker 149, eastbound. Driver is not responding to emergency signals. Will attempt to pull over. Copy that, Unit 421. Proceed with caution. Martinez maneuvered her patrol car behind the truck, activating her PA system. Driver of the commercial vehicle, pull over to the right shoulder immediately. Still no response. The truck continued its eastward journey, maintaining speed despite the flashing lights and siren. Martinez increased her speed to 90 miles per hour, drawing alongside the truck on the left side. As she pulled even with the cab, she glanced up at the driver. The cab was empty. Martinez felt a chill despite the warm air circulating through her vehicle's ventilation system. She could see clearly into the truck's cab. There was no one behind the wheel, no one in the passenger seat. The steering wheel moved slightly as if guided by an invisible hand, maintaining the truck's course along the highway. Dispatch, Unit 421. I have a situation. The commercial vehicle has no driver. I repeat, there is no one operating this vehicle. Unit 421, please confirm your last transmission. Dispatch, I am alongside the commercial vehicle. The cab is empty. No driver visible. There was a pause before the dispatcher responded. Unit 421, are you certain? Could the driver be slumped over or otherwise not visible? Negative, dispatch. The cab is clearly visible. There is no one inside. Martinez fell back behind the truck, unsure how to proceed. Standard protocol for reckless driving involved pulling over the vehicle, issuing citations, and potentially arresting the driver if warranted. But there was no precedent for how to handle a driverless vehicle traveling at high speed on a public highway. As she considered her options, the truck suddenly accelerated, increasing its speed to over 100 miles per hour. Martinez matched the acceleration, maintaining pursuit. The truck swerved sharply to the right, crossing 3 lanes of traffic before colliding with the concrete median barrier. The impact was tremendous. Sparks flew as metal scraped against concrete, the sound echoing across the desert landscape. Martinez expected to see the truck careen out of control, possibly jackknifing across the highway. Instead, the vehicle passed directly through the barrier without slowing, continuing its journey eastward as if the solid concrete were merely an illusion. Martinez slammed on her brakes, her patrol car skidding to a stop on the shoulder. She stared in disbelief as the truck continued down the highway, its taillights receding into the distance until they vanished completely. Dispatch, Unit 421. The commercial vehicle has passed through the median barrier at mile marker 152 and is continuing eastbound, requesting additional units to establish roadblocks. Copy that, Unit 421. Roadblocks being established at mile markers 120 and 180. Martinez exited her vehicle, approaching the location where the truck had passed through the barrier. There was no damage to the concrete, no cracks, no scratches, no indication that anything had collided with it at all. She ran her hand across the surface. It was solid and unbroken. Other units arrived within minutes, including Sergeant Davis from the Van Horn substation. Together, They searched the area for any evidence of the phantom. Truck tire tracks, debris, oil stains, anything that might prove its physical existence. They found nothing. The incident report filed by Martinez, case 2007-03-12-421, describes the event in detail, noting the impossible nature of the truck's passage through the solid barrier. Multiple civilian witnesses who called 911 that night gave consistent accounts of the vehicle. Though none reported seeing it pass through the barrier, most had lost sight of it before that point. In the weeks that followed, Martinez experienced sleepless nights and recurring doubts about her own perception. She requested and was granted a transfer back to Houston just 2 months after the incident, citing personal reasons. In her exit interview, she mentioned the phantom truck incident only briefly, describing it as an experience that challenged my understanding of reality. The Van Horn district has continued to receive sporadic reports of a similar vehicle over the years, though none have been documented with the same level of detail as Martinez's encounter. The phantom truck of I-10 remains one of the most puzzling cases in Texas Highway Patrol history, a vehicle that appears, endangers, and then vanishes without a trace. It was late November of 2015. Deputy Sheriff Tom Bradley had been with the Culberson County Sheriff's Office for 6 years, working primarily night shifts. The county covered nearly 4,000 square miles of West Texas desert, with a population of just over 2,000 people. Most nights, Bradley's patrols involved little more than checking on remote ranches and responding to the occasional traffic accident on I-10. The night of November 28th was particularly quiet. A cold front had moved through the area earlier in the day, dropping temperatures to the low 40s. The sky was clear, with a full moon illuminating the desert landscape in shades of silver and gray. Bradley had stopped at the Allamore rest area around 11:30 p.m. to complete his paperwork when his radio crackled to life. Dispatch to all units. We're receiving a distress call on Channel 9 from an unidentified source. The caller reports being stranded on I-10 near mile marker 30, eastbound. Vehicle disabled, 2 occupants, 1 injured. No further details available. Bradley acknowledged the call, finishing his log entry before pulling onto the highway. Mile marker 30 was just 20 miles east of his current location, a remote stretch with no services for miles in either direction. The terrain there was particularly desolate, rocky outcrops and scrub brush, with the Guadalupe Mountains visible in the distance to the north. As Bradley drove east, he maintained radio contact with dispatch, attempting to establish communication with the stranded motorists. Dispatch, this is Unit 503. I'm en route to mile marker 30. Any further information from the distress call? Negative, Unit 503. The call came in as a partial transmission, just enough to understand the situation. We've been trying to re-establish contact without success. Bradley increased his speed, his patrol car's headlights cutting through the darkness. The moonlight provided additional visibility, casting long shadows across the highway. At 11:48 p.m., he approached mile marker 30, slowing his vehicle as he scanned the roadside for any sign of a disabled vehicle. There was nothing. Bradley stopped his patrol car on the shoulder, activating his spotlight to sweep the area. The beam revealed empty desert on both sides of the highway. No vehicles, no people, no signs of any recent activity. He radioed dispatch to report his findings. Dispatch, Unit 503. I've arrived at mile marker 30. No sign of any disabled vehicle or stranded motorists. The area appears clear. Copy that, Unit 503. Could the vehicle have moved to a different location? Negative, dispatch. There are no turnoffs or side roads in this vicinity. If there was a vehicle here, it would still be visible. Bradley stepped out of his patrol car, the cold night air immediately penetrating his uniform. He walked along the shoulder, searching for any signs of recent activity: tire tracks, footprints, debris. The ground was hard-packed dirt and rock, showing few impressions from passing vehicles. There was nothing to suggest anyone had been there recently. As he returned to his vehicle, his radio crackled again with the same voice from the earlier distress call. "Hello? Is anyone there? We need help. My wife is hurt." Bradley grabbed his radio microphone. "This is Deputy Bradley with the Culberson County Sheriff's Office. I'm at mile marker 30. Where are you located?" There was static, then the voice returned. "We're right here, by the sign. Can't you see us?" Bradley looked around again. The only sign at mile marker 30 was the small green marker indicating the mile number. There was no one there. "I don't see anyone," Bradley said into his radio. "Can you describe your vehicle?" "It's a gray SUV, Ford Explorer. We ran off the road to avoid an animal. My wife hit her head. She's bleeding." Bradley scanned the area once more, his spotlight sweeping the desert on both sides of the highway. There were no tire tracks leaving the roadway, no disturbed vegetation, no sign that any vehicle had recently left the pavement. "Sir, I don't see any vehicle tracks leaving the highway," Bradley said. "Are you certain you're at mile marker 30? "Yes, I'm looking at the sign right now. Please hurry. My wife needs medical attention." Bradley felt a growing sense of unease. The voice on the radio sounded genuine, distressed, desperate, exactly as one would expect from someone in an emergency situation. Yet there was no physical evidence to support the existence of the caller or his vehicle. "Dispatch, Unit 503. I'm still receiving transmissions from the distress call, but I cannot locate the source. The caller claims to be at mile marker 30 with an injured passenger, but there's no sign of any vehicle or individuals." "Copy that, Unit 503. Can you triangulate the signal?" "Negative, dispatch. The transmission is coming through on the standard emergency channel, but our equipment can't pinpoint the location." Bradley decided to expand his search area, driving slowly east and west of the marker, while maintaining radio contact with the mysterious caller. "Sir, I'm driving along the highway now. Can you see my lights?" "Yes, I can see them. But you're going past us. We're right here." Bradley stopped his vehicle, turning on all his emergency lights. "I'm stopped now. Can you see me?" "Yes, we can see you. Please hurry. My wife is getting worse." Bradley stepped out of his vehicle again, calling into the darkness. "Hello? Can you hear me? Where are you?" There was no response, except for the wind whistling across the desert floor. He returned to his patrol car, picking up the radio microphone. "Sir, I'm standing outside my vehicle now. Can you see me?" "Yes, I can see you. You're right there. Please help us." Bradley felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night temperature. The voice on the radio could apparently see him, yet he could see no one. The situation defied logical explanation. "Dispatch, Unit 503. This is becoming increasingly unusual. The caller can apparently see me, but I cannot locate him or his vehicle. Requesting additional units to assist in the search." "Copy that, Unit 503. Unit 502 en route from Van Horn. ETA 15 minutes. Bradley continued his search, systematically covering the area around mile marker 30. He drove his patrol car onto the unpaved shoulder, sweeping the desert with his spotlight. The beam revealed nothing but rocks, cacti, and scrub brush. He returned to the highway and continued east for another mile before turning around and searching westward. Throughout this time, the distress calls continued at regular intervals. The caller's voice grew increasingly desperate, describing his wife's deteriorating condition with graphic detail. Bradley found himself caught between professional responsibility and growing disbelief. Part of him wanted to believe there was a genuine emergency he needed to address, while another part recognized the impossibility of the situation. When Unit 502 arrived, Deputy Hernandez joined Bradley in the search. Together, they conducted a thorough investigation of the area, using both patrol cars' spotlights and thermal imaging equipment. They found no evidence of any vehicle or individuals. Hernandez suggested they try a different approach. "Let's turn off all our lights and listen. Maybe we can hear something." Bradley agreed, and both officers shut down their vehicles, plunging the area into near darkness except for the moonlight. They stood in silence for several minutes, listening to the desert night. The only sounds were the wind, the distant howl of a coyote, and the occasional rustle of small animals in the brush. Then, through Bradley's radio speaker, they heard the voice again. "Please don't leave us here. We need help." Both officers jumped at the sudden sound. Hernandez looked at Bradley with wide eyes. "Where is that coming from?" Bradley shook his head. "I don't know. It's coming through the radio, but there's no one here." They decided to try a different tactic. Bradley would remain at mile marker 30, while Hernandez drove several miles away to see if the radio transmission changed in strength or clarity. As Hernandez's taillights disappeared into the distance, Bradley continued to monitor the emergency channel. The distress calls continued, now mentioning that the caller could see only one patrol car left. "Please don't leave. My wife needs medical attention." Bradley felt a profound sense of unease. The situation had evolved from strange to genuinely unsettling. He was alone in the desert, communicating with someone who apparently could see him but remained invisible despite all efforts to locate him. When Hernandez returned, they compared notes. The radio transmission had remained consistent throughout, with no change in strength or clarity regardless of distance. This was physically impossible. Radio signals should have weakened as Hernandez moved away from the source. By 3:30 a.m., after more than 3 hours of searching, the officers decided to conclude their investigation. They had exhausted all reasonable explanations and found no evidence to support the existence of the distressed motorists. The incident report filed by Bradley, Case 2015-11-28-503, documents the strange occurrence in detail, noting the physical impossibility of the radio transmission's behavior. In the weeks that followed, Bradley experienced difficulty sleeping and found himself constantly looking over his shoulder while on patrol. He requested a transfer to the day shift, which was granted after 6 months. The other deputies in the department were aware of what had happened that night, though few spoke of it openly. Some admitted privately that they had heard similar stories from older officers, tales of phantom distress calls from stranded motorists who were never found. The distress call from nowhere remains one of the most perplexing cases in Culberson County law enforcement history, a voice from the void, pleading for help that could never be provided, from victims who may never have existed at all. It was early September of 2010. Trooper David Chen had been with the Texas Highway Patrol for 8 years, working primarily the night shift along the I-10 corridor between Junction and Sonora. The 150-mile stretch was known for its rugged beauty, limestone cliffs rising from the desert floor, the Llano River winding through the landscape, and the occasional glimpse of wildlife darting across the highway. Chen appreciated the solitude of night patrol, the quiet hours when he could reflect on his life and career. The evening of September 5th began unremarkably. Chen had reported for duty at 9 p.m., receiving his patrol vehicle, a 2009 Crown Victoria, with approximately 50,000 miles, and completing his equipment check. The weather was typical for early September in central Texas, hot and humid, with temperatures in the low 80s even after sunset. A light haze hung in the air, limiting visibility slightly, but not enough to affect driving conditions. By 1:15 a.m., Chen had completed his routine patrol and was parked in a scenic overlook just west of Junction, completing his activity log. The overlook provided a panoramic view of the surrounding landscape, with the highway stretching into the distance like a ribbon of light. As he finished his paperwork, his radio crackled to life. Dispatch to all units. We have a report of a disabled vehicle on the eastbound side of I-10 near mile marker 458. Caller reports engine failure and requests assistance. No injuries reported. Chen acknowledged the call, pulling onto the highway and heading east toward the reported location. Mile marker 458 was approximately 20 miles from his current position, in a particularly remote area with no nearby services. The road there cut through a series of limestone hills with steep drop-offs on both sides and no shoulder to speak of. As Chen drove, he maintained radio contact with dispatch, requesting additional information about the disabled vehicle. Dispatch, this is Unit 617. Any further details on the disabled vehicle at mile marker 458? Negative, Unit 617. The call came in as a brief transmission, just enough to understand the situation. We've been trying to re-establish contact without success. Chen increased his speed, his patrol car's headlights cutting through the humid night air. The highway curved through the hills, limiting visibility to a few hundred feet ahead. At 1:42 a.m., he approached mile marker 458, slowing his vehicle as he scanned the roadside for any sign of a disabled car. There was nothing. Chen stopped his patrol car on the narrow shoulder, activating his spotlight to sweep the area. The beam revealed empty highway ahead, and behind no vehicles, no people, no signs of any recent activity. He radioed dispatch to report his findings. Dispatch, Unit 617. I've arrived at mile marker 458. No sign of any disabled vehicle. The area appears clear. Copy that, Unit 617. Could the vehicle have moved to a different location? Negative. Dispatch. There are no turnoffs or side roads in this vicinity. If there was a vehicle here, it would still be visible. Chen decided to search the area more thoroughly, driving slowly east and west of the marker while maintaining visual contact with the roadside. The limestone hills created deep shadows that could potentially conceal a vehicle, though Chen found it unlikely that anyone would choose such a dangerous location to pull over. As he passed mile marker 459, his headlights caught something unusual, a flicker of light in the distance, as if from another vehicle's emergency flashers. The light appeared to be coming from around the next curve, approximately half a mile ahead. Chen accelerated, his anticipation growing. As he rounded the curve, he saw what appeared to be a late-model sedan pulled over on the right shoulder, its emergency flashers pulsing in the darkness. He slowed his patrol car, pulling in behind the disabled vehicle. As he approached on foot, Chen noted that the sedan appeared to be a recent model Toyota Camry, silver in color. The driver's side door was open, but there was no one visible inside or outside the vehicle. Chen called out as he drew near. "Hello, Texas Highway Patrol. Is anyone here?" There was no response. Chen approached cautiously, his hand resting near his sidearm as per protocol. He peered inside the vehicle. It was empty, with no signs of struggle or damage. The keys were in the ignition, turned to the accessory position, which explained why the emergency flashers were operating. Chen radioed dispatch to update his status. Dispatch, Unit 617. I've located a vehicle at approximately mile marker 460. Silver Toyota Camry, emergency flashers activated, but no occupants visible. License plate reads Texas 7XYZ. Running the plate now. Copy that, Unit 617. Standing by. As Chen waited for dispatch to run the license plate, he conducted a search of the immediate area. The ground was rocky and uneven, with sparse vegetation that showed few signs of disturbance. There were no footprints visible, no indication of where the occupants might have gone. The dispatcher's voice came over the radio. Unit 617. That license plate comes back to a 2012 Toyota Camry registered to a James Wilson in San Antonio. However, The vehicle is reported as stolen in a case filed yesterday. Chen felt a surge of adrenaline. Copy that, dispatch. I'll approach the vehicle as a potentially stolen vehicle, requesting backup. Backup en route from Caraville. ETA 20 minutes. Chen approached the vehicle more cautiously now, aware that it might be connected to criminal activity. He noted that the vehicle appeared to be in good condition, with no visible damage that would explain a breakdown. The fuel gauge showed 3/4 of a tank, suggesting that the vehicle hadn't run out of gas. As Chen examined the vehicle's exterior, he noticed something odd. The car's registration sticker showed an expiration date of August 2013, nearly 3 years in the future from the current date of September 2010. Chen double-checked his watch. It was indeed 2:17 a.m. on September 6, 2010. He radioed dispatch again. Dispatch, Unit 6117. I've noticed something unusual about this vehicle. The registration sticker shows an expiration date of August 2013. That's almost 3 years from now. There was a pause before the dispatcher responded. Unit 617. Please confirm what you just said. The registration sticker on this vehicle shows an expiration date of August 2013. Chen repeated. Unit 617, are you certain about what you're seeing? The current date is September 6, 2010. Positive, dispatch. I'm looking at the sticker right now. It clearly reads 2013. Chen decided to examine the vehicle more thoroughly, using his flashlight to check the interior. The car looked virtually new, with no signs of wear on the seats or steering wheel. The odometer read just over 5,000 miles, unusually low for a 2012 model, assuming the vehicle identification number matched the reported year. As Chen continued his investigation, he noticed something else that defied explanation. The newspaper on the passenger seat had a date of September 5, 2013, exactly 3 years ahead of the current date. The headlines discussed events that had not yet occurred. A mayoral election in San Antonio, a stock market milestone, and a hurricane that had not yet formed. Chen felt a growing sense of disorientation, as if he had stepped into an alternate reality. He took out his phone to check the date. It confirmed September 6, 2010. He called his wife just to hear a familiar voice and confirm his connection to the present time. David, is everything okay? She asked, her voice thick with sleep. Yes, everything's fine. Just checking in, Chen said, not wanting to worry her with the strange events of his night. After the call, Chen returned to the mysterious vehicle, now more convinced than ever that something beyond his understanding was occurring. He decided to document everything as thoroughly as possible, taking photographs with his department-issued camera and making detailed notes. When backup arrived 20 minutes later, Trooper Rodriguez joined Chen in investigating the vehicle. Rodriguez confirmed everything Chen had observed: the future registration sticker, the dated newspaper, the unusually low mileage on what appeared to be a newer model vehicle. Together, they searched the surrounding area again, expanding their radius to include the rocky hillsides nearby. They found no signs of the vehicle's occupants, no footprints, no indication of where anyone might have gone. It was as if the car had simply appeared there, empty and waiting to be discovered. As the sun began to rise, casting long shadows across the highway, Chen and Rodriguez decided to have the vehicle towed to the Caraville substation for further investigation. They completed the necessary paperwork, noting the unusual circumstances in their incident report. Case 2010-09-06-617. What happened next only deepened the mystery. When the tow truck arrived and the driver prepared to hook up the vehicle, he made an unexpected discovery. Officers, there's something you need to see, he called out. Chen and Rodriguez approached the tow truck, where the driver was pointing to the vehicle's undercarriage. There, visible only from below, was a manufacturer's plate with the vehicle identification number. When Chen checked the number against his database, the results were astonishing. The VIN corresponded to a 2012 Toyota Camry that had been manufactured in May 2012, nearly 2 years in the future from the current date. The vehicle was not scheduled to be produced for another 20 months. Chen felt a cold realization creep over him. The vehicle they had discovered was not just a stolen car with fraudulent registration. It was a vehicle that, according to all official records, did not yet exist. The incident report filed by Chen and Rodriguez documents these findings in detail, though it stops short of suggesting any supernatural explanation. Instead, it presents the facts as they were observed, leaving interpretation to others. The vehicle itself was impounded at the Kerrville substation, where it remained under investigation for several weeks. What happened to the vehicle only deepened the mystery. 3 days after it was impounded, during a routine inventory check, the vehicle disappeared from the secured impound lot. There was no sign of forced entry, no indication of how it had been removed. Security cameras showed nothing unusual. The vehicle simply vanished between routine checks. Chen continued his patrol duties, though the experience had fundamentally altered his perception of reality. He found himself questioning the nature of time and space, wondering if other unexplained phenomena might have similar origins. He never spoke publicly about the incident, though it remained a topic of quiet discussion among those who had been involved. The time displacement incident remains one of the most puzzling cases in Texas Highway Patrol history, a vehicle from the future, discovered in the present, only to disappear again without explanation. For Chen and those who witnessed it, the experience served as a humbling reminder of how much remains unknown about the nature of reality itself. It was late January of 2016. Officer Maria Rodriguez had been with the Texas Department of Public Safety for 5 years, working primarily in the Traffic Management Division in El Paso. Her job involved monitoring the network of traffic cameras along I-10 through the city, identifying congestion points, accidents, and other incidents that required response. It was largely a desk job, though Rodriguez appreciated the opportunity to contribute to public safety without the physical risks of patrol work. The night of January 22nd was particularly cold for El Paso. With temperatures dropping into the low 30s and a light dusting of snow covering the ground, an unusual occurrence for the desert city. Rodriguez had reported for duty at 10 p.m., taking over the monitoring station from the day shift operator. The system consisted of 72 cameras, covering a 30-mile stretch of I-10 from the New Mexico state line to the town of Vinton. By 2:30 a.m., traffic was minimal, with only a few commercial trucks and occasional passenger vehicles traveling the highway. Rodriguez was conducting her routine camera sweep when she noticed something unusual on camera 47, which covered the eastbound lanes near mile marker 25, close to the Sunland Park exit. A figure was standing on the median barrier, apparently watching traffic pass below. The figure was tall and thin, dressed in what appeared to be dark clothing. It stood perfectly still, facing east, with its back to the camera. Rodriguez found this unusual pedestrians were prohibited from the highway, particularly at this hour and in these weather conditions. Rodriguez zoomed in on the figure, trying to make out more details. The image quality was limited by the distance and lighting conditions, but she could see that the figure appeared to be unnaturally tall, at least 7 feet by her estimation. It also seemed to be unnaturally still, not moving even slightly, despite the cold wind that was causing the camera itself to vibrate slightly. Rodriguez radioed dispatch to report the unusual sighting. "Dispatch, this is Rodriguez in traffic management. I have an unidentified individual on the median barrier at mile marker 25 eastbound. Camera 47, requesting patrol unit to investigate." "Copy that, Rodriguez. Unit 814 en route." Rodriguez continued to monitor the figure as she waited for the patrol unit to arrive. The figure remained perfectly still, showing no signs of discomfort from the cold weather or awareness of being observed. Rodriguez found this increasingly strange. Even the most disciplined individual would show some signs of movement or reaction to the environment after several minutes in freezing temperatures. As Unit 814 approached the location, Rodriguez maintained visual contact with both the patrol car and the mysterious figure. The patrol car's headlights came into view, sweeping across the highway as the officer approached the reported location. Then something happened that Rodriguez would never forget. As the patrol car drew near, the figure turned to face it. Rodriguez zoomed in further, trying to make out its features. What she saw chilled her to the bone. The figure had no discernible face, just a smooth, featureless surface that reflected the patrol car's headlights like polished obsidian. It raised an arm, long and unnaturally thin, pointing toward the patrol car. Suddenly, the patrol car's emergency lights began to flash, though the officer had not activated them. The vehicle swerved sharply, nearly colliding with the concrete barrier before correcting its course and accelerating away at high speed. Rodriguez immediately radioed dispatch. "Dispatch, this is Rodriguez. Unit 8114 has just left the scene at high speed. The patrol car's emergency lights activated on their own. The officer did not appear to be in control of the vehicle." "Copy that, Rodriguez. Attempting to contact Unit 814. There was no response from the patrol unit. Rodriguez watched as the car continued eastward, its lights flashing erratically. Then, without warning, the vehicle veered off the highway, crashing through the guardrail and plunging down an embankment. Rodriguez immediately dispatched emergency services. "Dispatch, this is Rodriguez. Unit 814 has crashed at approximately mile marker 27 eastbound. Vehicle went through the guardrail, requesting immediate medical assistance." "Copy that, Rodriguez. EMS and fire units en route." Rodriguez continued to monitor the scene through the traffic cameras, her heart pounding. The mysterious figure was no longer visible on the median barrier. It had vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. She switched between cameras, trying to locate it, but found no trace. Emergency vehicles arrived within minutes, their lights painting the scene in alternating colors of red and blue. Rodriguez watched as paramedics and firefighters worked to extract the officer from his vehicle. She felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Relief that help had arrived quickly, anxiety about what had caused the crash in the first place. The officer, later identified as Trooper Michael Ramirez, was transported to El Paso County Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. When questioned later about what had happened, he gave a confused account that matched Rodriguez's observations. "I don't know what happened," Ramirez told investigators. "I was responding to a call about a pedestrian on the median. As I approached the location, I saw someone standing there. Then, everything went strange. My lights started flashing on their own, and I lost control of the vehicle. It felt like something was pushing me off the road." Rodriguez reviewed the footage from camera 47 multiple times, trying to make sense of what she had witnessed. The figure appeared on the recording at 2:32 a.m. and remained visible until 2:47 a.m., when it seemed to dissolve into thin air as the patrol car crashed. There was no indication of where it had come from or where it went. The investigation into the incident revealed several anomalies. First, there were no footprints or other evidence of anyone having been on the median barrier that night. Second, the patrol vehicle's diagnostic computer showed no malfunctions that could explain the sudden activation of the emergency lights or loss of control. Third, multiple witnesses who had seen the figure from their vehicles as they passed the location gave consistent descriptions of a tall, dark figure with no visible features. Rodriguez filed a detailed report of her observations. Case 2016 ZUN 122 TM47, including still images from the traffic camera footage. The images were analyzed by forensic experts who confirmed that they showed no signs of manipulation or alteration. Yet they could offer no explanation for what the figure might be. In the weeks that followed, Rodriguez experienced difficulty sleeping and found herself constantly checking the traffic cameras for any sign of the mysterious figure. She requested a transfer to a different division, which was granted after 2 months. The Traffic Management Division implemented new procedures for reporting unusual sightings, though few operators experienced anything as strange as Rodriguez had that January night. The shadow figure on traffic camera remains one of the most puzzling cases in Texas Highway Patrol history, a mysterious entity that appeared on surveillance footage, interacted with a patrol vehicle, and then vanished without explanation. For Rodriguez and those who reviewed the footage, it served as a chilling reminder that some mysteries defy rational explanation, existing in the gray area between observation and understanding. It was early April of 2008. Trooper James Morrison had been with the Texas Highway Patrol for 12 years, working primarily the night shift along the desolate stretch of I-10 between Sierra Blanca and Van Horn. The 70-mile corridor was known for its isolation, vast expanses of desert scrub and rocky outcrops, with the occasional abandoned gas station or rusted billboard serving as the only evidence of human habitation. Morrison knew this stretch of road intimately. Every curve, every dip, every landmark was etched into his memory after years of patrol. He often worked the midnight shift, preferring the solitude of the desert night to the chaos of daytime traffic. The quiet allowed him to think, to process the events of his life and career, and to maintain a state of calm readiness that he believed was essential for law enforcement work. The night of April 9th began like any other. Morrison had reported for duty at 10 p.m., receiving his patrol vehicle, a 2007 Crown Victoria with approximately 75,000 miles, and completing his standard equipment check. The weather was typical for early April in West Texas, cool and dry, with temperatures in the low 50s and a clear sky full of stars. The moon was just a sliver, providing minimal light, which meant the highway was illuminated primarily by his headlights and the occasional passing vehicle. By 1:30 a.m., Morrison had completed his routine patrol and was driving westbound near mile marker 102, a particularly desolate section with no services for miles in either direction. The terrain there was flat and open, with the Davis Mountains visible in the distance to the north. Morrison was maintaining a steady speed of 70 miles per hour, his radio tuned to the standard DPS frequency, which was quiet except for the occasional routine transmission between other units and dispatch. Then he heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible beneath the static of the radio. At first, he dismissed it as interference, perhaps from a distant station or atmospheric conditions. He adjusted the tuning knob, but the whisper seemed to persist, independent of the radio frequency. It was a soft, sibilant sound, like wind rustling through dry leaves, yet it seemed to carry an unnatural quality that set it apart from the ambient desert noise. Morrison shook his head, trying to clear it. He had been on duty for over 3 hours, and fatigue might have been playing tricks on his senses. He decided to pull over at the next turnout to take a short break and get some fresh air. As he slowed his vehicle, the whispers seemed to grow louder, more distinct. He could almost make out words, though they remained just beyond comprehension. At 1:47 a.m., Morrison pulled into a scenic overlook just west of mile marker 100. He killed the engine, plunging the area into near silence, except for the gentle whispering sound that seemed to come from all directions at once. He stepped out of his patrol car, the cool night air immediately refreshing him. He walked to the edge of the overlook, gazing out at the desert landscape bathed in starlight. The whispering followed him, now seeming to emanate from the rocks and scrub brush surrounding the overlook. Morrison felt a growing sense of unease. This was not normal radio interference, nor was it a product of his imagination. The sound was real, tangible, and deeply unsettling. He returned to his patrol car, deciding to try a different approach. He turned off the radio completely, hoping to eliminate the source of the whispering. To his astonishment, the sound continued, now seemingly coming from inside the vehicle itself. It was clearer than before, and Morrison could begin to distinguish individual voices, though they spoke in overlapping layers that made comprehension difficult. Morrison felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night temperature. He started the engine, turning on the patrol car's emergency lights to illuminate the area. The rotating red and blue beams painted the desert landscape in eerie, shifting colors, creating deep shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. The whispering grew louder still, now forming coherent words and phrases. Morrison could hear his name being spoken, not once, but multiple times, by different voices. James. James. Can you hear us? The voices seemed to come from just behind his head, as if someone were sitting in the back seat of his patrol car. Morrison spun around, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. The back seat was empty. He turned back to the front, his heart pounding. The whispering continued, now seeming to come from the passenger seat beside him. We've been waiting for you, James. There's so much we need to tell you. Morrison felt a profound sense of violation. His personal space, his vehicle, his very name had been co-opted by whatever phenomenon was occurring. He grabbed his radio microphone, his hand trembling slightly as he pressed the transmit button. Dispatch, this is Unit 719. I'm experiencing unusual auditory interference at the scenic overlook west of mile marker 100, requesting assistance. The response came immediately. Copy that, Unit 719. What type of interference are you experiencing? Morrison struggled to describe what was happening. It's voices, whispering. They seemed to be coming from inside my vehicle. There was a pause before the dispatcher responded. Unit 719, are you certain? Your transmission is clear on our end. Positive, dispatch, Morrison said, his voice strained. The voices are continuing even now as I speak to you. Unit 719, backup is en route from Van Horn, ETA 20 minutes. As Morrison waited for backup, the whispering became more intense, more personal. The voices began to mention details from his life, his childhood in Dallas, his service in the Army, his daughter's recent birthday party. These were not random pieces of information, but specific, intimate details that only he and a few others would know. Sarah liked the pony you got her, James, one voice whispered. But she was afraid of the clown. Morrison felt a cold realization creep over him. This was not random harassment or a technological prank. Something was accessing his memories, his thoughts, his very consciousness. He felt a sudden, intense pressure in his head, as if his brain were being squeezed by an invisible force. The whispering now formed a coherent narrative, telling the story of his life in intimate detail. You joined the Army right after high school, didn't you, James? Basic training at Fort Hood, then deployment to Iraq. You saw things there that you've never told anyone about, things that still wake you up at night. Morrison felt his carefully constructed composure beginning to crack. He had indeed served in Iraq, and he had indeed witnessed events that he had never shared with anyone, not his wife, not his therapist, not even his fellow veterans. These were memories he had deliberately buried, yet now they were being recounted by unseen entities inside his patrol car. Stop it, Morrison said aloud, his voice barely a whisper. "Please stop." The voices ignored his plea, continuing their relentless narration of his life's most private moments. "You remember that night in Baghdad, don't you, James? The checkpoint, the car that wouldn't stop, the family inside. You still see their faces in your dreams, don't you?" Morrison felt tears welling in his eyes. He had never spoken of that incident to anyone, yet these voices described it with perfect accuracy, including details that only he could have known. He felt exposed, violated, stripped of all privacy and defense. As the backup unit approached, its lights visible in the distance, the whispering suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was more profound than any Morrison had ever experienced. It was a heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to absorb all sound and light. The backup unit, driven by Trooper Davis, pulled into the scenic overlook. Davis exited his vehicle, approaching Morrison's patrol car cautiously. "James, are you okay?" Davis called out. Morrison took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. "I'm fine, Mike, just experiencing some technical difficulties." Davis looked around the area, his flashlight beam sweeping the surrounding landscape. "What kind of difficulties?" "Dispatch said you were hearing voices." Morrison nodded. "They were detailed, personal. They knew things about me that no one should know." Davis listened patiently, his expression showing concern rather than disbelief. "Are they still here?" Morrison shook his head. "They stopped just before you arrived." The two officers conducted a search of the area, looking for any evidence that might explain the phenomenon. They found nothing, no footprints, no tire tracks other than their own, no signs of any electronic equipment that might have been used to transmit the voices. The desert landscape offered no clues, no shelter for someone who might have been playing an elaborate prank. The incident report filed by Morrison, case 2008-04-09719, documents the event in detail, though it stops short of suggesting any supernatural explanation. Instead, it presents the facts as they were observed, leaving interpretation to others. Morrison was placed on administrative leave pending a psychological evaluation, which he passed with no issues. He returned to duty 2 weeks later, though he requested a transfer to a different district, which was granted after 3 months. In the years that followed, Morrison rarely spoke of what had happened that April night. The experience had fundamentally altered his perception of reality, leaving him with a lingering sense of vulnerability and a profound distrust of the quiet desert nights he had once found so comforting. The whispering highway remained a mystery, an unexplained phenomenon that defied rational explanation and left those who experienced it forever changed. It was late May of 2019. Trooper Kevin O'Malley had been with the Texas Highway Patrol for just over 2 years, having transferred from the New York State Police seeking warmer weather and a slower pace of life. His assignment to the Sanderson district had been a dream come true. The vast open spaces of West Texas were a welcome change from the congested highways of the Northeast. O'Malley had quickly adapted to the rhythm of desert patrol, learning to navigate the remote roads and understand the unique challenges of law enforcement in such an isolated environment. The evening of May 18th began with typical late spring weather, warm and dry, with temperatures in the low 80s even after sunset. A gentle breeze from the south carried the scent of desert blooms and distant rain. O'Malley had reported for duty at 9:00 p.m., taking over the westbound patrol of I-10 from the Sanderson substation to the Langtree area, a stretch of approximately 50 miles. His vehicle, a 2018 Ford Police Interceptor with just under 20,000 miles, was equipped with the latest technology, including a dashboard camera with night vision capability and a GPS tracking system that recorded his location with pinpoint accuracy. By 11:30 p.m., O'Malley had completed his routine patrol and was parked in a median turnaround near mile marker 292, completing his activity log. The area was particularly desolate, with no services for miles in either direction and only the occasional passing truck to break the monotony. As he finished his paperwork, his GPS unit suddenly began acting erratically. The numbers on the screen flickered and changed, showing his location as various points miles away from his actual position. O'Malley restarted the GPS unit, thinking it might be a temporary glitch. The system rebooted, but the problem persisted. Now, instead of showing his current location, the screen displayed a message. Signal lost. Searching for satellites. O'Malley found this unusual. The GPS system in his patrol vehicle was military-grade and rarely lost signal, even in remote areas. He radioed dispatch to report the issue. Dispatch, this is Unit 822. I'm experiencing GPS malfunction at the turnaround near mile marker 292. The system can't acquire signal. Copy that, Unit 822. We're showing your location clearly on our end. No issues with our tracking system. O'Malley checked his dashboard display, which showed his location accurately. The problem seemed to be isolated to the handheld GPS unit he used for secondary navigation. He decided to continue his patrol, figuring the unit might need to be serviced when he returned to the substation. As O'Malley pulled onto the highway, he noticed something else that was unusual. The mile markers seemed to be out of sequence. He had just left the turnaround at mile marker 292, yet the next marker he passed read 285. He assumed he had misread the sign in the darkness, but when the following marker read 278, he knew something was wrong. O'Malley slowed his vehicle, focusing his attention on the small green signs posted along the shoulder. The numbers continued to decrease in the wrong direction, 271, 264, 257, despite the fact that he was traveling west, where the numbers should have been increasing. He felt a growing sense of disorientation, as if he had somehow entered a stretch of highway where the normal rules of geography and numbering no longer applied. Dispatch, this is Unit 822. I'm experiencing another unusual issue. The mile markers appear to be counting down instead of up as I travel west. There was a pause before the dispatcher responded. Unit 822, please confirm your direction of travel. Westbound, dispatch. Just past the marker that should be 293 but read 285. Unit 822, our system shows you traveling westbound, and the mile markers should indeed be increasing in that direction. Are you certain you're reading the signs correctly? O'Malley pulled over to the shoulder, stopping his vehicle directly next to one of the markers. He shined his flashlight on the sign. It clearly read 250. He had traveled less than 10 miles from the turnaround at marker 292. Yet the numbers suggested he had gone over 40 miles in the wrong direction. Dispatch, I'm stopped next to a marker that reads 250. This is physically impossible based on the distance I've traveled. Copy that, Unit 822. We're going to send another unit to your location to verify. As O'Malley waited for the backup unit to arrive, he decided to document the unusual mile markers with his dashboard camera. He drove slowly westward, recording each sign as he passed it. The numbers continued to decrease in sequence 243, 236, 229, creating a mathematical impossibility that defied all logic and reason. The backup unit, driven by Sergeant Ramirez, arrived approximately 15 minutes later. As Ramirez approached, O'Malley noticed that his vehicle also seemed to be affected by the strange phenomenon. His emergency lights flickered erratically, and his radio transmission was filled with static. Kevin, can you hear me? Ramirez's voice crackled over the radio. Loud and clear, Sergeant, O'Malley responded. But you're not going to believe what's happening here. Ramirez pulled in behind O'Malley's patrol car, stepping out with a puzzled expression. "What's going on? My radio just went haywire, and my GPS is showing me somewhere in New Mexico." O'Malley pointed to the mile marker they were parked next to. "Take a look at this." Ramirez walked over to the sign, shining his flashlight on it. The number clearly read 215. He shook his head in disbelief. "That's not possible. We were both just at the turnaround at 292 less than 30 minutes ago." The two officers decided to test the phenomenon further. Ramirez would stay at the current marker while O'Malley drove west for exactly 1 mile, then turned around and drove back. They measured the distance using their patrol cars, odometers, which were calibrated for accuracy. When O'Malley returned, they discovered that he had traveled exactly 1 mile according to his odometer. But the mile marker he stopped at now read 207, a difference of 8 miles from the marker where Ramirez was waiting. "This is impossible," Ramirez said, running his hand through his hair in frustration. "It violates every law of physics and mathematics I can think of." O'Malley nodded. "And yet, here we are." The officers decided to continue westward together, documenting the phenomenon as they went. The mile markers continued to decrease in sequence, now showing numbers that were mathematically inconsistent with the distance they were traveling. It was as if they had entered a pocket dimension where the normal rules of space and time did not apply. As they approached what should have been mile marker 300 based on their actual location, the signs now read in the low 100s. Then, something even stranger happened. The markers began to skip numbers, going from 98 to 85 to 72 in rapid succession, despite the fact that the officers were traveling at a consistent speed. "This is getting really weird," O'Malley said, his voice showing a mixture of fascination and fear. "It's like the highway is collapsing in on itself." Ramirez nodded, his expression grim. "I think we need to turn around. This isn't safe." As they prepared to turn around, both officers noticed a figure standing beside the road ahead. It appeared to be a woman in a white dress, waving for them to stop. O'Malley slowed his vehicle, his training taking over despite the bizarre circumstances. "Dispatch, this is Unit 822. We have a civilian on the roadway at approximately, well, we're not sure what mile marker we're at anymore. We're approaching to provide assistance." There was no response from dispatch, only static. O'Malley tried again with the same result. Both patrol cars' radios had suddenly stopped working. As they drew closer to the woman, O'Malley noticed something odd about her appearance. She seemed to be partially transparent, as if she were a hologram or a reflection. She continued to wave, her movements smooth and unnatural. "I don't like this, Kevin," Ramirez said over the radio, which had suddenly started working again. "Something's not right about her." O'Malley agreed. "Let's keep our distance." As they slowed to a stop about 50 feet from the woman, she began to walk toward their vehicles. With each step, her form became more transparent, until she vanished completely before their eyes. At the same moment, the mile markers around them began to flicker, changing numbers rapidly before settling on the correct sequence: 299, 300, 301. The officers looked at each other in stunned silence. Whatever phenomenon had affected the highway and their equipment had suddenly resolved itself, leaving them disoriented and questioning what had just occurred. "Dispatch, this is Unit 822. Can you read me now?" "Loud and clear, Unit 822. We lost your signal for about 5 minutes. Is everything okay?" Ramirez responded this time. "Dispatch, we're not sure. We experienced some unusual phenomena, but everything appears to be normal now." The incident report filed by O'Malley and Ramirez case in March 2019 and 05-18-822 documents the strange occurrence in detail, though it struggles to provide any rational explanation for the events they witnessed. The dashboard camera footage from O'Malley's vehicle shows the mile markers changing in impossible sequences, though the woman in white does not appear on the recording. In the weeks that followed, both officers experienced difficulty processing what had happened. They underwent additional training and evaluation, which found no issues with their performance or mental health. The incident was discussed quietly within the department, with some officers suggesting that electromagnetic anomalies or atmospheric conditions might have been responsible, while others believed they had witnessed something truly unexplainable. The vanishing mile marker remains one of the most puzzling cases in Texas Highway Patrol history, a temporary breakdown in the laws of physics and mathematics that defied all attempts at explanation and left those who experienced it with a profound sense of wonder and unease. For O'Malley and Ramirez, it served as a humbling reminder that even in our modern technological world, there are still mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. It was early August of 2004. Sergeant Ben Carter had been with the Texas Highway Patrol for over 20 years, spending the last decade as a supervisor in the Fort Stockton district. He had seen it all: multi-car pileups, high-speed chases, tragic accidents that claimed lives. Yet nothing in his extensive experience had prepared him for the strange events that would unfold on the night of August 7th. The evening began with typical West Texas summer weather, hot and dry, with temperatures still in the 90s after sunset. A thunderstorm was brewing in the distance, its lightning flashes illuminating the desert horizon in brief, brilliant bursts. Carter had reported for duty at 8:00 p.m., overseeing the night shift operations from the Fort Stockton substation. His responsibilities included coordinating patrol units, responding to major incidents, and ensuring the smooth operation of the district during the overnight hours. By 10:30 p.m., the storm had moved closer, bringing with it high winds and occasional light rain. Carter had just finished briefing the incoming shift when the first call came in. Dispatch to all units. We have a report of a major accident on the eastbound side of I-10 near mile marker 246. Multiple vehicles involved, unknown number of injuries. All available units respond. Carter immediately coordinated the response, dispatching 3 patrol units and requesting EMS and fire department assistance. Mile marker 246 was approximately 20 miles east of Fort Stockton, in a remote area with no nearby services. The storm was expected to reach that area within the hour, potentially complicating rescue efforts. As units approached the location, Carter monitored their progress from the substation. The first unit on scene, Trooper Martinez, provided an initial assessment. Dispatch, this is Unit 5 and 12. I've arrived at mile marker 246. We have a 3-vehicle accident. A commercial truck and 2 passenger cars. Significant damage. I'm estimating at least 1 fatality, possibly more. Copy that. Unit 5 and 12. EMS is 10 minutes out. What's the weather like at your location? Light rain starting to fall. Winds picking up. Visibility is decreasing. Carter continued to coordinate the response, dispatching additional units to assist with traffic control and investigation. As more officers arrived on scene, a clearer picture of the accident began to emerge. A commercial truck had apparently rear-ended a passenger car, which had then been pushed into another vehicle in front of it. The middle car, a late-model sedan, had suffered the most damage, its rear end completely crushed and its front end significantly damaged. The driver of the middle car, a woman in her early 30s, was pronounced dead at the scene. The drivers of the other 2 vehicles suffered minor injuries, but were able to walk away from the accident. Carter decided to go to the scene himself to oversee the investigation, particularly given the severity of the crash and the approaching storm. Carter arrived at 11:15 p.m. The storm now in full force. Rain fell in heavy sheets, and lightning illuminated the scene in dramatic flashes. The accident had occurred in a valley between two hills, which limited visibility and created a natural funnel for the wind. Carter immediately took charge of the investigation, directing officers to secure the scene, gather evidence, and assist emergency personnel. The investigation proceeded according to standard procedure. Officers measured skid marks, photographed the scene from multiple angles, and collected statements from witnesses and survivors. The driver of the commercial truck claimed that the sedan had stopped suddenly in front of him, giving him insufficient time to brake. The driver of the lead car confirmed that the sedan had indeed stopped abruptly, though she couldn't explain why. Carter examined the deceased driver's vehicle, noting that there were no mechanical issues that would have explained the sudden stop. The driver appeared to have been alone in the car, with no passengers or obvious reasons for her behavior. The investigation was proceeding according to protocol until Carter noticed something unusual. As he examined the sedan's interior, he found a piece of paper on the passenger seat, a receipt from a gas station in Fort Stockton, dated August 7th, with a timestamp of 9:47 p.m. This was significant because the accident had occurred at approximately 10:15 p.m., which meant the driver had left the gas station less than 30 minutes before the crash. What was unusual, however, was that Carter had seen this exact receipt before, earlier that same day, during a different accident investigation. Carter felt a sense of déjà vu as he examined the receipt more closely. It was identical to one he had found at the scene of a fatal accident earlier that afternoon, near mile marker 182. In that accident, a lone driver had lost control of her vehicle and crashed into a concrete barrier. The driver, also a woman in her early 30s, had been pronounced dead at the scene. Carter had found a gas station receipt on her passenger seat from the same gas station in Fort Stockton, dated August 7th, with a timestamp of 9:47 a.m. Carter dismissed the coincidence as just that, a strange but meaningless similarity between two unrelated accidents. He continued with his investigation, gathering evidence and coordinating the cleanup of the scene. The storm intensified as the night wore on, with frequent lightning and strong winds that made the work challenging. By 2:30 a.m., the scene had been cleared and the highway reopened. Carter returned to the substation to complete the necessary paperwork. The accident report, case INARS 2004-08-07-512, documented the events in detail, noting the deceased driver's sudden stop as the primary cause of the crash. The receipt was logged as evidence, but was not considered significant to the investigation. Carter went home at the end of his shift, exhausted but satisfied that the investigation had been thorough and professional. He slept for a few hours before being awakened by a phone call from dispatch at 7 a.m. Sergeant Carter, we have another report of a major accident on the eastbound side of I-10. This one's near mile marker 312. Multiple vehicles involved. Unknown number of injuries. Carter felt a sense of dread as he listened to the details. Mile marker 3-12 was approximately 60 miles east of the previous night's accident, in another remote area with no nearby services. He immediately got dressed and drove to the substation, preparing to coordinate another response. As he arrived at the substation, he was briefed on the situation. The accident involved 3 vehicles, a commercial truck, and 2 passenger cars with significant damage and at least 1 fatality. The details were remarkably similar to the previous night's crash, though Carter dismissed this as a coincidence given the common patterns of highway accidents. When Carter arrived at the scene, his sense of dread intensified. The accident was almost identical to the one from the previous night. A commercial truck had rear-ended a passenger car, which had then been pushed into another vehicle in front of it. The middle car, a late-model sedan, had suffered the most damage. its rear end completely crushed and its front end significantly damaged. The driver of the middle car, a woman in her early 30s, was pronounced dead at the scene. The drivers of the other two vehicles suffered minor injuries, but were able to walk away from the accident. The storm had passed, leaving the air cool and fresh, but the scene felt somehow familiar to Carter, as if he were experiencing a recurring dream. As he began his investigation, Carter noticed something that made his blood run cold. On the passenger seat of the deceased driver's vehicle was a piece of paper, a receipt from a gas station in Fort Stockton, dated August 7th, with a timestamp of 9:47 p.m. It was identical to the receipt he had found at the scene of the previous night's accident, and nearly identical to the one from the accident the previous afternoon. Carter felt a profound sense of unease. This was no longer a coincidence. It was a pattern, and one that defied rational explanation. He decided to investigate further, requesting the deceased driver's identification and running her information through the department database. What he discovered only deepened the mystery. The driver's name was Jennifer Martinez, a 32-year-old teacher from San Antonio. Carter immediately recognized the name. It was the same as the driver who had died in the previous night's accident, and the same as the driver who had died in the accident the previous afternoon. 3 different women, all with the same name, all dying in similar accidents on the same stretch of highway within a 24-hour period. Carter felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. He decided to contact the other officers who had responded to the previous accidents, comparing notes and sharing information. Together, they discovered even more similarities. All 3 women had been driving similar vehicles. All had stopped suddenly for no apparent reason, and all had been found with gas station receipts from the same location, dated August 7th, with timestamps of 9:47 a.m., 9:47 p.m., and 9:47 p.m. respectively. The investigation took a bizarre turn when Carter decided to visit the gas station where the receipts had originated. The attendant on duty remembered all 3 women, describing them in identical terms and noting that they had all purchased the same items, gasoline and a bottle of water. What was most unusual, however, was that the attendant claimed all 3 women had visited the station at exactly the same time, 9:47 p.m. on August 7th. Carter felt as if he had stepped into an episode of The Twilight Zone. The situation defied all logic and reason, suggesting that time itself had somehow become distorted or looped, creating a repeating pattern of events that ended in tragedy. He decided to investigate further, reviewing surveillance footage from the gas station and comparing it with the dashcam footage from the patrol cars that had responded to the accidents. What he discovered only deepened the mystery. The surveillance footage showed all 3 women at the gas station at the same time, yet they appeared to be separate individuals who didn't interact with each other. The dashcam footage from the 3 accidents showed identical scenes, as if the same crash were occurring 3 times in different locations. Carter felt a growing sense of helplessness as he realized that there was no rational explanation for what was happening. The repeating accident appeared to be a phenomenon beyond human understanding, a glitch in the fabric of reality that defied all attempts at explanation or intervention. The incident reports filed by Carter and his team, cases 2004-08-07-52, 2004-08-07-617, and 2004-08-0724. Document the strange occurrences in detail, though they struggled to provide any coherent explanation for the patterns they observed. The cases were eventually closed as tragic accidents, though the similarities between them remained a topic of quiet discussion within the department. In the years that followed, Carter experienced difficulty processing what had happened during those 24 hours in August 2004. He continued his career with the Texas Highway Patrol, but the experience had fundamentally altered his perception of reality, leaving him with a profound sense of mystery. and wonder. The repeating accident remains one of the most puzzling cases in Texas Highway Patrol history, a temporary breakdown in the normal flow of time that created a tragic loop of events, leaving those who witnessed it with more questions than answers, and a humbling reminder of how much remains unknown about the nature of reality itself. The American landscape remains vast and unknowable. Across the expanse of Texas, the ribbon of I-10 cuts through desert, hill country, and coastal plains, serving as a vital artery of commerce and travel. For the men and women of the Texas Highway Patrol, this highway is both their workplace and their responsibility, a 900-mile corridor where they enforce laws, assist motorists, and respond to emergencies. Yet, as the accounts we've explored tonight demonstrate, there are aspects of this responsibility that defy conventional training and explanation. The 8 incidents documented here span 15 years and hundreds of miles. Yet they share common threads that suggest something beyond random coincidence or misperception. Vanishing hitchhikers, phantom trucks, distress calls from nowhere, time displacements, shadow figures, whispering highways, vanishing mile markers, and repeating accidents. So these are not the stuff of folklore, but documented encounters reported by trained professionals in the line of duty. What connects these experiences? Perhaps it is the isolation of the highway itself, or the vast, empty spaces where reality seems to thin at the edges, allowing other possibilities to seep through. Or perhaps it is the unique role of the highway patrol officer, working alone in the dead of night, serving as a witness to phenomena that most people will never encounter. Whatever the explanation, these accounts remind us that the world is not always as it seems, and that there are mysteries that lie just beyond the edge of our understanding. The officers who experienced these events underwent rigorous evaluation and investigation, with most continuing their careers without further incident. Yet, each was fundamentally changed by what they witnessed, carrying with them the knowledge that there are aspects of their job and of reality itself that cannot be explained in a training manual or a procedural handbook. They continue to serve and protect, patrolling the dark highways of Texas with the knowledge that sometimes the most challenging encounters are not with criminals or traffic violators, but with the unexplained mysteries that lurk in the darkness. These stories serve as a testament to the courage and professionalism of the Texas Highway Patrol, who face not only the dangers we can see and predict, but also those that emerge suddenly from the unknown. They remind us that even in our modern technological world, there are still frontiers to explore and mysteries to unravel, frontiers that exist not in distant lands, but on the highways we travel every day. The silence that follows these stories is perhaps the most unsettling aspect of all. Unlike fictional tales that provide neat resolutions and clear explanations, these real-life accounts end with questions rather than answers, leaving us to contemplate the vastness of the unknown and the limits of our understanding. In that silence, we find space for reflection, for wonder, and for a healthy respect for the mysteries that surround us. If you or someone you know has a true story to share, leave it in the comments below. Our understanding of these phenomena grows with each account, each testimony, each fragment of experience that helps to illuminate the darkness. Your stories matter, not just as entertainment, but as documentation of the unexplained aspects of our world. The Texas Highway Patrol continues its work every day and every night, patrolling the vast highways of the Lone Star State with dedication and professionalism. They remain the first line of defense against both the known dangers of the road and the mysterious encounters that defy explanation. We owe them our gratitude and our respect for the difficult and often unsettling work they do. Thank you for watching Snowbound Screams. Until next time, stay safe out there.